Hello, 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 my friends. Thank you for joining me on Person Behind the Pages, the show where we get to know the creators that make the things we love. I'm your host, Nicholas W. Fuller, and today I'm talking with Claudia Klein. Hi, Claudia. Yeah, I'm happy to have you. So, Claudia Klein is on TikTok and Instagram and has thousands of followers on each, lots of views, that sort of thing. She's a mom, she's a wife, she's an experienced relocator, which we'll get into in a bit. She's soon to be a video game writer, which is rad, and she's an author who has written a trilogy of books. Trilogy's already out there, already available, doing lots of stuff. Claudia, thank you for being here. Absolutely. So let's get into the questions. So, Claudia, one fact that kind of stood out to me as I was learning a little bit about you is that you relocate quite often. And that's actually something that sort of drove you towards doing writing as a potential career and writing three books already. Uh, yeah, talk a little bit about that and the how well does writing fit in with the relocating and at least the ability to be doing it from everywhere. I guess that was the draw of that kind of career wise, right?
Yeah, it fits in really well. So I have kind of my past before I've always been writing, but before I really honed in on like I'm gonna be an author, I'm gonna make this happen as my career, I was an entrepreneur. I was a network marketer. I had a fiber arts business, and I've just always done stuff on the side to be that career for me because it like moving every 18 months, you cannot get a career unless you're going to have one like online somewhere. And being a mom to small children, it's like, is that really possible? Do I want to put my kids in daycare? Not really. So being an author um, just kind of allows me the time freedom, and yeah, you can work from anywhere. It's really great.
Are you gonna tell me to? Are you gonna be one of these authors that's telling me that you write your books while your kids are napping? Because I've heard this from some people, and I'm like, I have kids, and I don't know how you're doing that. I don't,
Yes, I am the mom who writes the books while my kids are napping,
Amazing,
and kind of in the evenings after they go to bed. So yeah.
amazing, amazing. I am in awe. I like, like my daughter goes down for a nap, and like half the time I'm like, just like collect myself, But that's pretty cool. I have to also ask an aside. You said fiber arts. You were doing business, and like my wife is super into crochet. Are we talking like yarn stuff?
Yeah, we're talking yarn stuff. We're talking crochet, knitting. I started designing my own knitting patterns, and I was thinking about
Wow.
possibly publishing them. And I got into spinning my own yarn with like an old-fashioned spinning wheel, which is super fun. But it's one of those things like you only have so much time in the day for your hobbies, and the writing thing can take all day, but so can the fiber arts thing. So one of them
Right.
had to go, and writing I've always done, so that was the one that stayed.
That's a perfect segue into. I understand that you've been writing since you were 7. Like that's amazing. What is that like? No, no. Was that second grade?
It is, I think it was second grade for me. Yeah. I was one of the youngest people in my class graduating, so yeah.
Wow, wow. So, what were your second grade stories like? I want to hear.
So my mom was reading us Little House on the Prairie at the time. So my very first story, I still have it. It's written in a notebook, in pencil. It's starting to fade, so I need to like put it in the computer or something. But it was kind of like I would place it in like the 1930s, but it's
Hmm.
like little girls on a farm creating eggs. And then I got like plagiarism phobia or something as a 7-year old. Like I was just rereading it. I was like, this is just like Little House of Prairie. I can't just copy a book. So I stopped writing that story.
Oh wow, really? Oh, that's a shame. But you still have it. That's amazing. That's pretty
Hmm.
cool. Have you gone back and read it recently? Like, and I say recently, I mean basically any time as an adult.
Yes, I read it a couple years ago as an adult. I think that was when I was trying to put some of my old notebook stories into into like on the computer.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, I found I was like, oh, this is so cool that I have my very first story that I wrote about as soon as I learned how to spell.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Amazing. That's super cool. That's yeah. I had, I started writing a little bit at like a very young age, but I don't really have any of the stories anymore. But for me, I'm kind of like I'm okay with that. As cute as it would be, they were not good. They were not good. But uh, so that's amazing though. You've always been writing. Yeah, and of course we all get older. You've grown up, and I understand that a lot of authors they have kind of different jobs along the way. I recently talked to Rob J. Hayes, and he was a marine researcher. All sorts of different jobs. But you, I mean, granted you were an entrepreneur, but you've never had a full time job. Is this true?
Yeah, so I got married young, right out of college, and my husband was like, I want you to spend your time being a homemaker so then we don't live in a messy house. So I got a part-time job. Worked about 35 hours a week, so that's about the closest I've gotten to working full-time. Um,
That's full time.
yeah, no,
That's
it's very
full
cool.
time. That's
Yeah,
enough full time for like benefits at most places. So, but
yeah,
still, like that's cool. That's cool. Hey, hang out at the house. My mother was a stay at home mom my entire childhood. So respect. I know that we kept her busy, and I'm sure your
oh
kids
yeah,
keep you busy too.
yeah. I think like stay-at-home moms are some of the busiest people on the planet, and people
Right.
don't realize that until they become one.
Right. 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 But I also understand when you were younger with your family. I think you said you had a big family and you guys were doing like some music and some like theater kind of production stuff as you were growing up. Is that right?
Yeah, so my mom, she did music education in college, and we were in a large homeschool group that had a lot to offer. We had a homeschool orchestra, so as soon as we moved to that state where that existed, like we got right plugged into that, and she just became like the teacher for all the woodwinds. So I took up clarinet really, really soon, and that was my passion kind of all throughout until I had my first child. And then it was one of those, Mommy, can I play your clarinet? And I would be the mom who's like, sure, take a whack at it, little 2 year old. And, a reed would break, and reeds are expensive. So I've had to set music aside. But yeah, it was super fun growing up. We were always performing either in church or just with a homeschool group. Yeah, it was great.
Nice, nice. That's fun. I did some a little bit of theater back in the day. The way my mom tells it was that when I was in kindergarten, the little local community theater came to the school and like they were recruiting basically. they were they were there looking for little kids to be in the shows and stuff. And I went home and I was like, "Mom, I want to do this." But like, I was in a few shows at that age, but then my mom got way more into it than we ever was. She became at one point the president of the local community theater and like she directed a show, she was producer on a few shows, she was costumer like but also I will tell you that I was you know chorus actor, never like a leading role, but small part actor. I did backstage a lot, but one of my most fun was I was the spotlight operator for like a comedy show called Nonsense, and I have like such a ridiculous sense of humor, and like I laughed at the same jokes every single night. I'd be up there like moving the thing because I'm just still laughing at the same joke on closing night. It was ridiculous, but it was
That
a lot of
sounds
fun,
awesome. That
right?
sounds awesome. Yeah, so our homeschool group started a theater group because I guess we didn't want to work with the local community theater. So we called ourselves the Stage Hams. We were It wasn't really comedy. It was more like we would put on musicals. We did Sound of Music, we did Secret Garden, we did Wizard of
Nice.
Oz. It was just really great. So I was always usually a very small motherly side character. They always put me in the mother roles, which is kind of funny. Um, but like I'm a terrible actor. I'm terrible on camera.
Oh yeah,
So
that's
that was probably why, because I was the one who they like recruited. I was in college at the time, but they recruited me to like come in because they didn't have enough older actors.
uh-huh.
So I played the mother, and I was the one actor who forgot my line on stage. Like
Oh
all
no.
these younger high schoolers and middle schoolers acting around me, I just forgot my line or repeated the line twice
Whiff.
in the productions.
I love that about theater though, in that like I really love the nature of it as a creative endeavor where like you're going out and you're putting on a performance and there's going to be mistakes. But in some ways that's sort of like the joy and the magic of it. It could like you know because the other people on stage will sort of help you kind of react to the mistakes that you're making, or you might help someone react to their mistake, or like maybe prompt them to remind them of their line if it's really important, or just kind of work around it. But I also love to that there is a deadline, you know, because like like a book we can work on for years and just sort of like spin our wheels a little bit. But for a show, like the show has to go on at this time, right? I think that's really neat about theater. So what were some of the things that you really enjoyed about theater while you were doing it?
I really enjoyed getting to go somewhere every single day, and that was with my friends. Like it was all of us, just we were just all best friends, and we were all just acting together, and we got to do it every day. And probably by the time our second or we did our second or third musical, it got to be really, really scheduled. Where like every minute the actors had something different to do in one of the different rooms to go practice, and I really enjoyed the schedules. I guess. It's kind of weird, but definitely the practices were my favorite part about acting.
Nice, nice. So, and kind of keeping with the theme of theater, but on a very different scale, I understand that these days you're a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right?
Yes, so my husband introduced me to Marvel.
Uh-huh.
My brothers would tell you that we are DC fans. So, but yeah, it was we started we got married right around the time I want to say the Marvel Cinematic Universe started being a thing, like a really big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we saw all those movies in theaters, and it was
Mm-hmm.
it was great. Like
Yeah.
it's gotten super big. It's got almost gotten like the storyline has gotten too long to keep up with everything.
Right.
But
Right.
it's so cool how it all interweaves together.
Yeah, I do agree, and I used to watch every single movie like adamantly, um, with very few exceptions. Although I wasn't at the theater for like the first Thor because I was like, ah, Thor. And I remember two Guardians of the Galaxy. I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work for me. Like the raccoon with the gun, that seems too much. But then like I saw, I think it was with like the first actual preview, not just like a little picture, but the actual preview, and I was like, okay, this might be okay because they sort of don't take themselves seriously a little bit. Like there's sort of jokes about Rocket Raccoon, like, and I love those films. But I agree, like I kind of kept up with everything, not so much the TV shows. Well, not really the TV shows at all, but like every movie up through Endgame. But now, like, I'm not even like I tried to watch Eternals, and I was like, I don't know, and I haven't watched the Shang-Chi, and I do like
Yeah.
Captain Marvel, but I don't know.
Yeah, I would say Shang-Chi and Eternals are kind of like a different thing I'm not even sure if they're considered are they considered MCU? But I think they are, but like they are a different thing than like Avengers and following
Right.
the actors who are in the Avengers.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I just feel like it was all so cohesive and like a beautiful vision from the first Iron Man movie through Avengers Endgame, but now it feels a little like I don't think they have quite the same vision, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, but I mean, we also lost Stanley a couple years ago too, so maybe that's why. But I
That's a
really,
good point. I hadn't really considered that because I didn't really think that Stanley was kind of driving it for the cinematic universe, but maybe he had more of a role with it than I thought. That's a really good point.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. All right. Tough question. Are you ready?
Okay,
Favorite MCU hero? Go.
Captain America. I
Oh,
I love his storyline. It's just so sad, but he's always like trying to fight for what's right, and that's why I love him. Like I think his honestly, the first Captain America movie is so dumb. Like get this like superhero guy to dress up and do sideshows, and you're like why?
yes.
Um, but yeah, I really like him in the sequels.
That's kind of funny. And I agree. I haven't really thought about that, but that's a really good point. But yeah, I mean, I feel like some people will be like, "Oh, Captain America is kind of like he's bland, he's one-dimensional." I'm like, I get it. I get that as a criticism. I understand the reasons why some people make the argument that like Iron Man is a better character because he's more sort of developed and he's got flaws. But listen, I want a hero that's just good. I don't want a hero that's a womanizer with a drinking problem that has flaws. Don't give me that. I want a hero that's just out there doing the right thing all the time, being a good guy. Like that's, is that so bad?
No, I think that's what we should root for.
Right? Right? Yeah, I don't know. I like Captain America. All right, all right. So you get points for that answer in my book. Have you and your husband? I'm sure. I'm not sure how old your kids are, but I'm sure you're like drawing them into the MCO too, right?
Not yet, but we're drawing him into Star Wars because Star Wars has all of the cartoons.
True,
I
true,
would
true.
say I would say we're bigger Star Wars fans than we are MCU fans, actually. Especially
Okay.
my husband. Like my husband's kind of one who's dragged me along, and we watched Star Wars on my birthday once because it was his idea. Um,
Has he gone to like Disney and made his own lightsaber?
no, we haven't been to Disney yet. I think we want to try theme parks when the kids are a little bit older, and then we
Yeah.
can remember it too.
Yeah, yeah. My daughter's 2.5, and like part of me is like, ooh, and then I'm like, no, what a waste, what a waste, you know.
Yeah.
Um, that's cool. Yeah, have you seen that Young Jedi's that's on Disney Plus now?
My daughter watches it. My daughter watches a lot of TV without me while I'm just like in the room reading a book or working on a story. So I don't know what it's about, but yeah, it's cool that they did that.
Yeah. That one, like same. I've had it on with my daughter, but I've kind of caught a little bit, and I'm like, this is not bad. I like what they're doing here. This is both from a story perspective, but also like from sort of what they're actually presenting to my daughter. It's good. It's good. It's good. All right. Star Wars fan, MCU fan. You're my kind of nerd, Claudia. I like it. I
Yeah,
like
you
it.
think I would write like sci-fi fantasy, but I write epic fantasy.
Hey, I get it. I between you and me, I played a little hooky today and went and watched Return of the King at the movie theater with a couple friends this afternoon. Uh, yeah, and it was at the movie theater. It was 4K with the sound system. It was awesome.
Nice. That's
It
pretty
was awesome.
cool.
Right? Right? Actually, my number two, like I mean, I saw the movies in the theater to begin with, but my number one experience was actually this past summer. I went and saw a viewing of Lord of the Rings Two Towers, and they had a whole orchestra playing the soundtrack.
Oh, I got to see orchestra being background for It's Not a Music musical once, so that is
That's
pretty
pretty rad.
cool.
That would be a good one. That'd be a good one. But yeah, the Lord of the Rings definitely tickled my. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about this. This was at a big venue, and there were thousands of people there. I mean, this venue is enormous, and it holds like thousands and thousands. And my little nerd heart was so happy that there were thousands and thousands of other nerds there to watch. Again, this is Two Towers that came out in 2002. This is a 20 plus year old movie. And all of us were like, yes, let's go. What? Can you imagine writing a story that has that kind of impact?
Yes, that is my goal.
Right? Man.
That would be cool.
Man.
That would be like one of those I have arrived moments
Oh,
to
for
to
sure.
write
Yeah,
about.
that's next level. I have arrived. That's like I have ascended. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I have arrived moment when one of my early reviewers was like, "You've reached a professional level of writing with your third book, The Wizard." And I was like,
Wow.
"Really? Oh, this is so cool."
Ooh. Nice, nice, nice. That's yeah, the good review. Listen, if you're a reader and you're like, do reviews matter? Let me tell you, they do. Authors definitely are checking them out, and we're like, oh, someone liked it, So not only that, but also like from a business and point of view, like yes, it matters on Amazon. They're gonna push more, but blah 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 blah. But from a personal point of view, authors are gonna read it, and like yeah. So, but there's a perfect segue talking about your books. You wrote your first book over a Christmas break, in right?
Yeah, I was in college, and I college was interesting. It was hard starting out, but as I progressed year to year, I had more and more time, which is funny because the classes got harder. But I wrote, yeah, I wrote Air Lingu, first book in the Air Lingu series, The Air. during Christmas break in college. That was the best Christmas break ever. I was just like on my computer typing away in a corner, and everyone else was just like having fun. I was like, I'm having the best time of my life over here in a corner. So I wrote it in 12 days. It ended at like 35,000 words, and then I put it away for, I don't know, probably about 5 years. And then when I was looking through my backlist at like which of these books am I like not as attached to that I can just publish right away. And that was the one because it was a standalone
Hmm.
and it was probably the one that I had the most distance from at the time. Um, so it was the best one to choose for like going back and editing and expanding. Um, so yeah, I found out about, let's see, I wrote that book in 2012, found out about the indie world in 2016, and then published it in 2019. I had a lot of life changes happening from 2016 to 2019, like having my first child and stuff and becoming a stay-at-home mom.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
Yeah, that'll slow you down.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And that on top of like all the moving and everything. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think I moved like 4 times in between 2016 and publishing my debut.
Wow, that's wild. That's super awesome though. And again, you're exactly my type of nerd because yes, I'm like, I just get to be alone and type away. That sounds great. um, that's fun. Uh, so you've written that book. You put that one out in 2019. Now you've got two more that are out, and at some point you did a Kickstarter. Tell me about the Kickstarter.
I went to Kickstarter this year. I found out about Kickstarter kind of around the time Brandon Sanderson was doing his. I had absolutely no idea what Kickstarter was, and a friend just told me, like, Brandon Sanderson, who I sort of knew who he was at the time, just ran a
Yeah.
Kickstarter
Now
that I
every
was like,
every writer
wait,
knows
he
exactly who
raised
Brandon
$41
Sanderson is
million.
now.
dollars.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was looking into it and I found like a Kickstarter for authors group on Facebook really fast, and then someone suggested Russell Nolte and Monica Leonel's book, Get Your Book Selling on Kickstarter, and that was kind of like what opened my eyes to be like, oh, this could be like a really good opportunity to actually make back some of the money I've spent on editing. Um, so yeah, I went to Kickstarter as soon as I could. Um, and it worked for me. So I'm really happy because there are so many campaigns that get put up there that don't fund. Um, so I'm really happy that me with my teeny tiny audience, we funded. So
Yeah, that's rad. Yeah, but that goes to the point that it's hard out here for writers, right? Like, I mean, we got to do all this work up front, and none of it's paid until the book is done, which, that's the nature of the business, and we all know that getting into it, and that's totally okay. But, if you want to do it right, then as an indie, you're going to go pay for your own editor, and you're going to go pay for your own cover, and you've invested probably like thousands of dollars into getting your book like to market. You're hoping that it's going to sell and at least be able to make that money back, right? It's a little crazy.
the
It's
crazy
but
thing when I got started, I still believed that myth that like, oh, if you put a book up on Amazon, it'll sell. And that
mhm.
like you don't have to do anything to get books to sell. I was like, oh boy, little did I know.
Yeah,
You gotta do a lot. You gotta do a lot of audience building, and I would say audience building starting out is probably the key thing. Like just find where you want to build your audience and just go at it until it's the size that you need it to be.
again, a perfect segue because yeah, you've built some audiences on Instagram and I guess on TikTok, but you're less on TikTok these days. But I'd love to hear what's worked for you in terms of audience building and what work do you like doing with audio building and what have you done where you're like, you know what, this actually didn't work out.
Um, that's kind of a tough question to answer, I think, because I was going last year. What was it? I didn't really do much audience building until last year when I was getting ready to publish my second book.
Hmm.
And I decided to audience build on Instagram. And then I realized probably like 8 months later, like Instagram is not a very good place to actually sell books. Um, what what I what I have realized is like once you have a certain number of books out, you're open up to a lot more book promotions and stuff. you can do a lot more things once you have three books out than what you can do when you have just one book out. So I have, yeah, I did Instagram and I built it up to almost 7,000 people last year. Super easy to do when you know how to do it. I don't know. And then like this year I came over to TikTok and I was like, well, everyone else seems to be going really big on TikTok. So I did that as much as I could for about 7 or 8 months. And it was about the same amount of like, you put all this work into it and you get the same amount of sales as I got from Instagram. Um, and so it's nothing big. And I thought like maybe on TikTok I could just figure it out really fast and be one of those lucky unicorns. But I think that those are few and far between. So right now I'm kind of focusing on building my newsletter. Um, my last book launch I really focused on newsletter marketing, and it worked really well, better
Mhm.
than social media marketing has ever worked for me. So I think that's what I'm going to continue to do, as well as do some paid promotion.
Makes sense. Yeah. Every place I've ever heard anything about like online marketing, they all talk about how email newsletter is the most important part of it. And not only because it's effective, because people actually read their emails, whereas like if you're scrolling on Twitter or whatever, you're just scroll or x.com. Anyway, you right, right. Yeah, but you're just you're scrolling. You're not looking for something. Whereas your email, you're invested in your emails, you know. But also the other aspect of it is social media, the algorithm can change at any time, whereas email it doesn't change and you own your list. Whereas, you know, there's a lot of people that like invested heavily into growing Facebook groups or Facebook pages or that sort of thing. And now within recent years they're finding that even the people that are on their groups aren't necessarily seeing all of their posts in on Facebook. So yeah, where again, email, you're gonna see your email. So that's smart. That's smart.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things like you get started and you figure out real quick that paid ads don't make sense with one book, and then you're like, oh, well, I should do social media marketing. And then you're like, well, social media marketing isn't really gonna sell books by the droves like other types of marketing can. Um, so yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
That's another thing that I think is sort of hard about books in general, and why like it's better to market when you have more books, or particularly books in a series, and you have more of the series out. Is that like the price is so low of a book, and reasonably so. Like nobody wants to pay $100 for one book or something. You know that's outrageous. But because the price is so low, you can't afford to spend $20 to get a lead. You know, it's not like a big ticket marketing where if you're selling like $1,000 course or something, then sure you can spend like $20 to go get a lead because yeah, again it's tough out here for us authors, huh? Woe is me.
Is.
Ugh.
Well, it takes a while to figure it out.
Yeah.
I got into the world in 2016, and then I published in 2019, and then I got into like podcast training
Hmm.
like maybe 6 months later, and I've just kind of been listening to podcasts about like how to market books better ever since. And
Hmm.
I feel like I'm finally there where I know what I'm doing, but it took
Nice.
me like 4 years to get here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing with anything. I don't know. I'm just winging it all the time. Just winging it with everything I'm doing.
good luck.
But um, so with the Kickstarter, did you find that were you? Because I've heard one of the things that's appealing about Kickstarter is potentially you're reaching like a new audience. So did you find that like some of the people that were backing you on Kickstarter were people that that certainly weren't on your email list?
Yes, so that was the crazy thing about my email list. So everybody tells you build your email list through BookFunnel group promos. So I did. None of my email lists that I know of back to Kickstarter.
Oh,
I
well,
got
like, but
all
did they
I
already
got
own the
all
book?
my
Maybe.
Kickstarter backers from
Yeah.
social media.
Oh, wow.
Which is
Okay.
crazy
Okay.
that I just said that thing about social media that it doesn't really
Yeah.
work, but it worked for Kickstarter.
Yeah.
My first Kickstarter, I ran a second one this year too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a lot of my backers were super backers, already shoppers on Kickstarter, and that was super helpful to being
Mm-hmm.
able to fund a Kickstarter for the first time. And then the second time, a lot of them just returned to like back the rest of the series because my first Kickstarter was just book one, The Heir, and then the next Kickstarter was the whole trilogy because book three, The Wizard, was going to be released on Amazon. I think I released it like 3 months after or something.
Mm-hmm.
So that was neat to see like my audience that I found on Kickstarter just returned for more, and that was super cool.
Nice. 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 Well, so you mentioned that Instagram, now you've mentioned that Instagram kind of did lead to success with a Kickstarter, and you mentioned that Instagram was not hard to do if you know how. So, spill the beans. Tell me how.
Well, um, so what I do is probably what you should not do on Instagram. It's actually what I've heard YouTubers like I regularly say not to do,
Uh-huh.
and it's called spam your followers. Um, Basically, I would go through the follow trees, and that's how I built my audience up to being about 6,000 people. I would say I have probably about 2,000 true fans that have found me and want to follow me, but everybody else is just following me because I follow them back through a follow train. But it's super
Mm,
easy to like run the follow trains every week and you gain. I was getting probably about 500 new followers a month, and then I was just texting them with something like, "Hey, I write books. I'm an author. You want to check my books out?"
right.
I actually got a lot of compliments though about like being reached out to from an author being like, "Do you want to read my book?" Like everyone was really kind and
Yeah.
was really kind and yeah, they were really accepting of it. So it worked to an extent. Like I've sold over 100 books on Instagram, but it led to major burnout. So I
Right.
went over to TikTok this year trying to find something different that was just like, oh, I can make a post and people will grab my book.
Yeah. Uh, this is very random, but we're all on the the talking about marketing. Have you looked into doing a Reddit AMA, or have you been on Reddit R Fantasy at all? Or
Um, I have not been on Reddit enough to really know what it's all about.
okay.
I have talked to someone who made their own Reddit group and it did not work out for them, so I'm a little leery of going on Reddit. Especially with a lot of the ones that you can like talk about books in, they don't really want you to self-promote in. So I feel like it would be hard, kind of like going into Facebook reader groups and trying to promote in there.
Mm-hmm.
Really reminded me of Facebook a lot. And honestly, I started out in 2016 on Facebook, and then
Mm-hmm.
2022 I went to Instagram, and then 2023 went to TikTok, and now I'm just kind of doing doing paid promotions and stuff like that. Now they have no books out.
Yeah. 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 And again, it works because you have a whole trilogy that they can go buy. Hopefully, you get them, hooked on that first one, and they're buying more, right?
Hmm.
Makes sense. Makes sense. All right. Uh, Different question. What is your daily routine like? Where are you making time to write? I guess we talked about how you're writing while your daughter naps, but like, wow, just tell me more about how you're finding time to do the creative work.
Um, I feel like I kind of every second I get where I don't have to do this chore in the house, or I don't have to go run an errand to shop, or I don't have to play with my child. Like I feel like that's when I open up my computer. I'm like, I'm either going to work on my Amazon ads or I'm going to work on my writing. I try and force myself to write first because that's what everybody tells you to do. Because if you start doing the marketing first, you're never going to go back to the creative side
Mm-hmm.
during the day.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say I just write kind of in between moments during my day to day. Especially like my nap time is definitely my office hours. And baby's well, he's a toddler now, so toddler's trying to give up nap time. So I'm just kind of like, I wonder if I should put you in preschool when you're old enough.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's different, and I am not at all telling you what to do. But for me, like my 10-year-old is in school, and my 2.5-year-old is in a daycare. I'll tell you what, too. Like, I mean, I enjoy spending time with my 2.5-year-old. Do not get me wrong, but like, it can get a little draining, right? And but we found this daycare, and well, I mean, we went to like a few different daycares, and some of them I was like, but this one they were like, we look at this yard. We have this massive like playground for kids to play with, and it's sort of sectioned off by age groups, which makes sense. And like we'll be teaching your kid like sign language, which she definitely learned while she was very little. Before she could really talk, she was signing to us a little bit, like more, you know.
Hmm.
And I was like, dude, these guys are going to be doing more with her than I'd be doing at home.
Like, I used to be in education before I came
Yeah,
home. COVID hit and I had my COVID baby, and yeah, because I used to be a substitute teacher, and when you have more than one kid, like you'd be like paying the daycare out of your
yeah,
personal
yeah.
finances to put all your kids in daycare.
No, I get it.
Um,
My daughter's our COVID baby too, but
um,
we had to
yeah,
do something during lockdown, right?
yeah.
Anyway,
I wrote a book.
yeah. All right, so you're finding time at nap time any moment. I'm amazed. Were you like this is super insider baseball from one writer to another, but like do you do like if you had like a 10-minute chunk, are you able to actually do something like valuable? Because I think one of the problems that I have is I get in my own way, and I'm like I can't write unless I'm like I gotta be at my desk, can't have distractions, need like, ideally big chunk of time to work, and it's like you're never gonna get far that way. You need to just like stop. I'm creating like my own barriers to getting in front of the keyboard. You know what I mean? All right.
Yeah, I feel like I could potentially get on a computer and write a couple hundred words in 10 minutes. Well, maybe not a couple hundred, maybe like 100.
Sure.
But what I tend to do in those 10 minutes at times is that's when I make my social media posts. I'm like, I can
Okay.
whip out a phone and make a reel in like 5, 10 minutes, and boom, it's done for the day, and then I don't have to do it anymore. I wait to do the actual like writing, or like if I'm setting up an ad that day, I wait to do that until I do have like a good half hour. But the
Yeah.
funny thing about me is like I can only sit and do one thing for about half an hour at a time before I need to take a break. So when I
Mm.
am drafting, I draft during the writing sprints. I do like 15-minute writing sprints, and then I take a break. I write like
Wow.
2,000 words an hour, so it's not really a problem doing
Wow.
it that way.
Yeah.
Still get a lot of words in, I guess.
Nice. Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. Still trying to find like my perfect system, but it's evolving, and plus I've heard from many an author that like their system changes from book to book, and like you know anyway.
Yeah,
um
I'm still trying to figure out my system for like how many books I can write in a year, because honestly, it was about 2 years ago this month that I decided I'm gonna do this full time as I can. So like me being a stay-at-home mom, me like the author thing being my job, I do consider myself a full-time author, even though like the income obviously doesn't pay for much yet. But yeah. So
yeah, wait, we got to start somewhere. We all got to start somewhere. That's okay.
yeah.
What's your favorite part of kind of creating your art? What's your favorite part of doing the work of writing? What comes easiest and feels the best?
So I'm a pantser. If you
Okay.
are not in part of National Novel Writing Month, also known as NaNoWriMo, you probably don't know what that is. It's basically where you just sit down, no outline, just write your book. And I have tried outlines. I have gotten that book that was like, write a book in 90 days, and you spend like 80 days outlining a book, and then you can like magically write it in 2 weeks. And I'm like, it didn't work at all.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just, write. I have an idea for maybe the climax of the book, and then I have an idea for the beginning scenes. So then I'm like, okay, I can just start at the beginning, work my way towards the climax, and then I get stuck somewhere in the middle, in that muddy, murky middle. So that's when I like pull out my notebook and I'm like, write, and I like write one sentence outline for each chapter. because I'm at the point in the book where I only need like maybe 10 chapters left, and I'm like, this is what's going to happen.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that makes sense. And then is kind of the beginning when you're writing those first few lines and you kind of have that is that the favorite part?
Um, no, I would say getting to that actiony scene at the climax is my favorite part.
When it all
Like
kind of comes
my
together and
very
there's the big,
first,
yeah.
yeah, my very first fantasy novel that I wrote, I was like junior in high school. I had just watched Lord of the Rings and read all the books for the first time, and I was like, I'm gonna write this scene where this elf defeats the bad guy. And I wrote it, and I thought it was epic. And then I read it like 10 years later, and was like, wow, I cannot believe I was that bad of a writer. But that's how that whole story got started.
Yeah.
And then so I wrote that exciting action adventure scene where she kills the bad guy, and then I was like, this story has a beginning. So then I started at the very beginning and wrote my way all the way to that scene, and then wrote some sort of a Lord of the Rings type long ending.
Nice.
I am actually currently putting that book. That's the next book up on my slate to be published. Actually,
That's cool. That's exciting.
very excited.
How how many? All right, you've been writing since you were 7. You actually have like that first story. You're, you know, an adult now. Probably writing for like around 20 years, I imagine. How many trunk books do you have?
Not that many.
Oh, really?
I write really slow. Like I started that book, I think junior year of high school. I finished it right after I graduated high school. It took me like 2 years to write this book, and I was
Mm-hmm.
one of those kids like I did my writing for the day, and then I like did my reading for the day, and then I did my crochet for the day. I just like did all my individual hobbies just kind of right in a row, and didn't spend a ton of time doing just one.
Sure.
So I've only finished probably about 6 books. And I've written probably about 20 to 30,000 words in about 4 or 5 more.
Wow. Okay.
Other
Yeah.
than that, I've done a lot of first scenes,
Okay. Okay.
something like
That's
that.
still, I think that's a good count, man. I think that's, and I will unhappily, like, I'm take your crown for a slow rider, and that's, I'm gonna wear it. I am
I'm trying to make it
even,
into a fast writer, but like being stay-at-home mom with kids under school age, it's like
right,
there's only so
right.
much you can do. If I get one book out a year, it'll be good.
I know. Yeah. No, I'm in the same boat. And I'm like, I really would love to write faster, but it's just, you know, one, it's not that easy.
Yeah.
Two, yeah, similar kids, all that stuff. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like,
Three,
oh, do you have a third three?
yeah, well, three. I also like doing things like this. You know what I mean? Like it's not like the writing is my only kind of creative endeavor. You know, so and I like that. I like having multiple things and doing multiple things, and I love talking to people like you. This is fun, but it definitely technically I could be writing right now, but meh, you know. But yeah, if I could wave a magic wand and be a faster writer, that would be nice.
Yeah, I'm trying to be a faster writer because I already know that if I sit down for a whole hour, I can write 2,000 words an hour.
Hmm.
But like I'm also like trying to figure out my launch plan for next year because I have like I signed up for 3 slots for 3 different books with my editor for next year. And I'm kind of like trying not to freak out because I haven't like with all those Kickstarters and with that book launching to Amazon, I did not do any writing whatsoever March to September this year. So like
Hmm.
getting back into the gear where I'm just like writing like mad during the winter,
Hmm.
it's hard.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I talked with Travis Baldry, and he was talking about when he's writing, he writes a chapter every night. And he's like, I'm like, every night? He's like, every night. And he said for him, it feels sort of like working out or something, right? It's like a habit, and you have to kind of keep it up. And I get that, and I think that's true. And I think it's easier when I can kind of keep doing it for a while. But yeah, like, sometimes life gets in the way. It's been a little bit since I've wrote too. It's
Yeah,
tough.
like my last book, The Wizard, I wrote really fast. I think I wrote it in about 2.5 months. And
Nice,
honestly,
nice.
it was the easiest book to edit. which
Yeah.
has not been the case for any of my other books that I published. Has not been the case for the book that I'm currently working on that's hopefully going to be published in March. We'll see.
Right.
Um, because like the current book I'm working on, it's called Song of Siege and Shadows. And I started it in 2016 during NaNoWriMo. And then I kind of kept pulling it out in between when I was working on the Airling Goose series, just in those in between moments when I was at an editor or with beta readers. Like the Airling books when they were at the editors and beta readers.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so this book, I was going through like, guess what I would call the second draft of it. Like I'd edited it before, but this was the real second draft. And I was just like, this character arc is all out of place because this is where I stopped writing it in 2016, and this is where I started writing it in 2022. It was just a mess to do that second draft, and I hated it. It took me a whole month, and I'm so glad I'm done.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. My first book, which is a trunk book, but I wrote that from 2007 to I think 2013. My next book, I had that idea shortly after 2013, and I started working on it a little bit, but then I did kind of just put it away. But so the and that one I finished a draft of it early this year, but it's still it's very rough and it's messy, and I really want to work on it more. So that one's, I guess, ultimately in the trunk again, but with every intention of pulling it back out and working on it more. But now I'm working on my third book, which I'm trying to. The second book, I was just like, I've got a vague idea. I'm just gonna like write some stuff, and that's part of why I need to go like rework it. Whereas the third book, I'm like, no. I am a plotter, and I was like, I'm gonna look at like the 3 act story structure, and I'm gonna actually fit my plot around this structure and have it make sense from the get go. And so that's what I'm working on, and like I've got it planned out. It's just a matter of actually getting the words done. But yeah, that second book is 7+ years, and it's not done yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we'll get there. Well, I'm excited for that. That one's called How to Pee in Zero G.
Yeah, I'm really curious with that kind of a title. Like, is it sci-fi? Is it
Of
fantasy?
course.
Okay, it's
No,
sci-fi.
no, no. It's sci-fi. It's so I am not nearly as good of a writer as either of these two guys, but the if I'm doing the job that I want to do well, it will be like kind of a love child between like Andy Weir the Martian and Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide.
Okay.
Right? A little bit of kind of the absurd humor, but then a little bit more kind of like near future without kind of the like absurd sci-fi. Um, we'll see. We'll see if I can pull it all off, but it's been fun. And
Yeah.
my writing group loves my. I think one of my strongest characters in the story so far is actually my villain, because he's in love with himself.
Okay. So my question for you is, do you
Okay.
find it easy or hard to write comedy?
Oh, I love that question. So I am drawn to trying to write comedy and trying to write like sort of jokes and stuff. I do like what I find difficult about it is that when you're writing comedy, you have so much fewer tools than you do if you're telling a joke to a friend, right? You don't have inflection, you don't have the same control over timing. You don't have body language. I guess you could maybe sort of, write the body language of but still like so there's so much fewer tools, and that makes it harder, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, like when I am drafting a book, at least this is how it was last year. I was watching Friends for like I was writing this epic fantasy. I was like, I need something funny. So I was watching Friends. And then I was like, I gotta write a book like Friends. And then I tried my hand. I was like, no. But then I went around and for my first Kickstarter, I did a, what do you call it? I don't know what kind of award it was, but I did this extra award
The
where I wrote a
stretch
short
goal.
story. And
Yes.
I made it like this is going to be a short story comedy in an epic fantasy world. So I tried my hand at it, and my editor thought it was hilarious. It has some
Nice.
poetry in it, and I stink at poetry, but she thought even the poetry was funny, which
Nice.
is great.
You've got to send this to me. I want to read it now.
Okay, I could. Right now, I've only sent it to my Kickstarter backers, but yeah, I could totally send it to you.
That would be great. That's awesome. That's fun. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's interesting. I do think that yeah, comedy can be a little hard, but it's fun and rewarding. And I'll tell you, like my writing group that I meet with on Saturday mornings, like they've read a lot of my works in progress and provided feedback, and there's nothing better for me than when I'm giving some like seeing the reactions from my writing group, especially when it's some funny parts and they're like actually laughing, and I'm like, yes, it's a good feeling. Um, So tell me you're doing this writing thing, you're treating it full time, love it. What's like a favorite opportunity that you've had from this that you wouldn't have had had you not been a writer?
Oh goodness. That's a tough
Could
question.
could be anything like podcast interview.
Yeah.
Could be like going to a con, could be maybe like fan art, anything.
I would. You'd give me two ideas. I would definitely say the cool things I've gotten to do was I got to do some artwork for my Kickstarters, and like I had never even considered like doing some extra merch and stuff, but now I did Kickstarters, I had to do the extra merch, so that was super fun to just see my characters come to life through an artist's hand. But also, yeah, getting to do these YouTube interviews and podcast interviews. I'm trying to schedule more of them. They're always super fun. Uh,
Right.
yeah, and it's like if I wasn't in this space, then I wouldn't be doing this. I would
Right.
probably just be reading a lot or something.
Right, which is also good. But yeah, no, I totally like one of the things I've mentioned before though, but when I wrote my first book, it felt super isolating just because I wasn't engaging with any community at all. But now my approach is very different, and I'm talking with other people and I'm seeking advice and like trying to engage in communities, and it's such a better experience. And book people are just wonderful people, and it's so nice to get to chat with different folks like you and share stories and be like, yeah, we have that thing similar. Um, so that's great. I love that. So, tell me, what are you working on now? You kind of mentioned that you've dragged out one of the books and working on that. Plus, you've got to go get three different books to your editor next year. What different works are you working on?
Yep. So I am my first trilogy is straight up YA epic fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Little romance subplot. I know I play it up on the romance on TikTok because I've heard like TikTok's kind of like for more for romance type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I am branching out into YA epic fantasy romance. But honestly, it wasn't like I'm inventing something new to do this. It was more like this is my baby story that I wrote when I was like a teenager. And then like it morphed in, I wrote the third book first, and then it morphed into me writing the second book next. And then I wrote the first book. And now it's morphed into more of a, oh, I want to write shorter books, not really huge adult epics, to keep it in the YA genre. So
Mm-hmm.
right now it is a planned Elvish fantasy romance series. That's a planned 5 book series. The first book, I've landed on a name for it, so it's Song of Siege and Shadows, and
Yes.
I'm having a, I'm wanting to put it on more than just Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Go back to Kickstarter with it. I want to maybe try out Kindle Vella with it. So we'll see. I'm trying to figure out like launch plans right now for it, but it's definitely I'm sending off to betas November 1st, so then I can write book two during NaNoWriMo.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm super excited because that's only 2 weeks away. And I'm like, yes, I can finally do a first draft.
That's exciting. I'm hoping that I can finish the book I'm writing during NaNoWriMo, but I don't know. I have mixed feelings about Nano because like I love the idea of it, but it also like just stresses me out. And then like, if I get off to like not a good start in the beginning, it's like, oh man, I just feel bad about it the rest of the month. Plus like the idea of having to do it during the lead up to the holiday, lead up to Christmas, celebrate Christmas, and like during Thanksgiving. Who thought this was the best month for NaNoWriMo? I don't know.
Yeah,
But
it is kind of a really crazy busy month to be trying to write 50,000 words. Honestly, I have done it. I've signed up to do it probably about 6 years
yeah.
in a row or anything, but like I've only ever done it like twice, and I've only gotten like 30,000 words done in a month.
Yeah.
Um, so like last year I did it, but I was one of those, it wasn't like I didn't start a book from scratch. I don't follow the rules for NaNoWriMo.
Yeah, I don't I
I
forget
was
the
just
rules. Yeah.
like, I am almost done writing the wizard. I'm gonna finish writing the wizard. So I finished writing the wizard, and then I pulled out Song of Siege and Shadows, and I just started working on that the rest of the month. And then I turned around and started editing and preparing the wizard for publication.
Yeah,
So that's what I'm kind of hoping to do for this NaNoWriMo.
I think it's a good plan. And you're in good company in that you've done Nano a few times, but kind of didn't get it done. Travis Baldry wrote Legends and Lattes as a NaNoWriMo project, uh, which is amazing because that book has gone gangbusters. Have you read that?
I need to. Like, I was in Barnes and Noble today, and I saw it. I was like, "This is the book I need to read." But then I'm also like looking at the cover. I'm like, "This looks like Forks," and
Yeah,
I've heard it's comedy, but I'm like, "Hmm."
it's not comedy. It's
Okay.
cozy. It's not. It's
Okay.
not funny, but it's good, and I recommend it, especially as another writer, because what he did so good, I think, is just like it's not an especially like complicated story. Like it's straightforward. Viv the orc is leaving that life, and she wants to start a coffee shop, and that's what the story's about. The premise is simple, but the execution was beautiful. And I think that there's a lot that we can kind of learn from that. Plus, I think like yes, it's super popular, and that there's probably because just the world is ready for that sort of more wholesome, just cozy story. Because nobody's thrilled with how things have been going in the 2020s.
Nope.
um, but yeah, it was really good, and I do recommend it for those reasons. Yeah, but I'm with you. It's like I wanted like epic fantasy. That's the sort of thing that I'm usually drawn to, and this isn't that, but it's still like it's good. Um, so you're writing YA and you're kind of leaning into romance. So I'm curious with like of course there's going to be scenes where two people are getting together in a romance, right? Are you kind of leaning into the spicy scenes, or do you fade to black?
I don't know how much to tell you. Um, you'll have to read the book to figure a lot of it out. But like, I stay clear of spicy. Like
Yeah.
I've read Akatar and it left a bad taste in my mouth because it was just I wasn't expecting it. Like when I found Akatar, it was in the YA section. I was like, this is not YA. Uh, so thankfully they moved it to the adult section in the library by now. Um, but yeah, I'm definitely because of Akatar. I think I'm staying away from spicy.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll see. I want what I want is this is all over Instagram, by the way. Like they show the Pride and Prejudice hand clench scene. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like where Mr. Darcy lets Elizabeth up into the carriage, and then like they show his hand going like that or whatever. Like he touched her, and that's kind of the vibe that I want to give
Nice.
my story.
Sweet romance, right? Isn't that what they call it?
I think, yeah, they call it sweet romance, but I tend to say sweet clean romance.
Oh, really? Well, I thought sweet was inherently clean.
It is, and I honestly didn't hear just sweet romance until like 6 months ago, so I still have sweet clean in my head.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I dig it. I dig it. Tell me if you can just like a little bit more about what's appealing to you about Kindle Vella, because I don't know. I haven't talked to any writer that's doing Kindle Vella, and I'm interested in it. Go ahead, and we won't go too much longer either. No worries.
So what interests me in Kindavella is that it's a new platform, and like I keep hearing of like all the writers who were kind of got into Kindle, like Amazon Kindle when it first came out, like 2008, 2012, and a lot of them are like, I didn't do anything special. I just put a book up and it sold like hotcakes. So that's kind of why I'm interested to hop on this platform because before it gets like crowded, because it's a new platform, kind of like Kickstarter too. They're both new platforms, and it's like get in while before the gold rush. So then you're part of the gold rush.
Right. Yeah. Have you talked to anyone that's using it? That's.
Not in depth. I with everything I'm trying to with how I'm trying to write books faster and publish hopefully more than one a year. I don't have as much time to talk with other writers as I wish I had.
Yeah, fair. Gotta actually keep the kids alive, right?
Yeah.
Have you? Saw this great joke that I love this joke as a parent, where being a parent, especially of a toddler, is like being in the Secret Service, but your ward that you're protecting, you're not actually protecting other people from killing them. You're protecting them from killing themselves because they are constantly just trying to do stuff that's going to ruin them, right?
Oh, yes. That's
It's
hilarious and very true.
right. Yeah. Today, my 2.5-year old opened a drawer in the kitchen and got a butcher knife, and I was like, I am going to have to move that.
Yeah, I've had knife experience too, and it's like, I didn't mean to leave that on the counter, but
Yeah.
somehow you did it, ninja.
Yeah, right. I know it's Halloween, but let's not have a slasher film. Anyway, Claudia, thank you for being here. This has been super fun. I appreciate not only learning more about you, but getting to get a little bit of a wonky writer conversation with you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Where can people find and follow you online?
So I am at the same handle on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. The handle is at Claudia Klein Author.
Nice. Good job getting that same one across the board. Awesome. Yeah, at Claudia Klein Author. Go check her out. And if you like this conversation, give me that like, give me a comment. Really appreciate it. You can also check out more on my Patreon. But in the meantime, if no one's told you yet today, you're an absolute legend.